Okay, here we are. We're going to be setting up a domain controller. Now, what we want to do is check a couple of things. So here's Server Manager Dashboard, which should come up by default. Now, I've already renamed my computer. I've just called it my DC. And you see it's in a work group just now because we haven't actually done anything. Now, Ethernet 2 has to be changed. Now, that's the Ethernet one will be the one that's going to give you your access to the internet. But Ethernet 2, you want to have a quick look and see what's happening now. It's got a 169 address, which means it's trying to find a DHCP server and not getting one. So we're going to change that and give it an IP address. So IP version 4. And for the server, I would say 192.168.1.1. Subnet mask, just go for the default. The default gateway is itself, and the DNS server is going to be itself. So 127.0.0.1. And OK, close that. Okay, so now it's got an IP address. Okay, it should change. Back in the local server, just have a look. Ethernet 2, oh there we go, right, and it's just changed to there as well. So 192.168.1.1. So what we want to do is we want to change this into a domain controller, so it's add roles and features. Right, so here, next, we don't need to worry about this. It's role based or feature based installation, so next. We're going to choose my DC, next, and what we want to do is choose Active Directory Domain Services. Okay, and then it's going to ask you to put in a few features. Just go with the default, so that's good. Okay, so for now that's all we want. So let's go with that. So we'll go next. Okay, and then next again, and install. So off it goes. Is it installing? So it's take a wee bit of time. I'll pause and come back. Okay, after a few minutes, you'll get to this stage, and it'll say, you'll see this here: additional steps are required to make this a machine a domain controller. So promote this server to domain controller, which we do. Okay, so it's going to be add a new forest. Now the domain names, depending on what course you're doing and whatever else, then it's going to, that'll decide on what you're doing, what you're going to call it. So I'm just going to call it test.local. Now obviously you won't be test.local, it's just for demonstration only. So if you've got a class where you're building web servers or whatever else, it might be something else, or you've made up your own companies, as we have in some classes, then we'll use the company name. But for this one it's test.local. So next. Okay, now it needs a password, so the forest functional level is fine there. We could just stick with the Windows Server 2016. That means the lowest level of server it's going to talk to would be one back from what we're using. We're using Server 2019, so a Server 2016. If you had Server 2008 or whatever else on your network, then you could go all the way back and add that, but we're fine, so we'll just go with that. Now the password is, I'm just using the password that I created already, so password 1. So P@SSW0RD1. Right, so that's me got my password in now. Now it can create a DNS, we'll do that later. Okay, so we'll go next. Now the NetBIOS name will come up. Now it should just say tested. It will depend on what you've got or what you call it, what the NetBIOS name is going to come up as. So this takes a second or two. Go next. Now you'll see these coming up now. There's database log files and sysfile folder. Just go with the defaults, go next. Okay, and then it's going to ask you to create as a domain controller, and then next. It'll take a couple of minutes. So prerequisites need to be checked. So the pasta say you can click install to do the installation. So click install. And off it goes. It's just waiting for DNS to finish its installation. We can go back and sort out things here later on. I'll demonstrate that later. I'll say this takes a couple of minutes. Okay, once it's done, it'll say you're about to be signed out and Active Directory was installed. Okay, so there it goes, and it's going to do a restart. Okay, here we are after installing Active Directory, and we're going to log in as the test administrator now. So put in the word password, and oh, very good. Okay, now the password's in. Your machine will automatically start up with Server Manager. Okay, here's what we have up to now in Server Manager. We have computer name is MyDC, test.local. I've set the Ethernet address here, and the other one is set by my internet provider to allow me via NAT to allow me to get information. Now we could also go for updates and whatever else. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you Active Directory. Okay, we're going to have a quick overview of Active Directory. So we click on Tools and Active Directories, Users and Computers. Let's have a look at this. Here we go. Now, this is our domain level up here. Now, this is all built-in user accounts, so different security groups and whatever else that people can be added to. So you can see backup operators, things like that are in here. It's a lot of different certificate, creating certificates and whatever else. Print operators, just users. So what we want to do is we want to start creating our way of doing things. So in test.local, what we can do is we can go for a few new things. Now, the first thing you want to do is an organisational unit. Imagine that you have different companies within your organisation. So we'll just say we've got finance. Okay, so we'll create a finance container just for these users. Okay, now we'll have a couple. I'll go for another one, and we'll just say staff, and another one, students. Guess we'll put in. Sorry, you being too quick with the fingers there. Students, so we've got right. So we've got these. Now let's take the user from here. Let's put a user in staff. Okay, so let's go for a new user. So new user. Now choose yourself. So I'll use me, George. And whatever your naming convention is that you'd have to think about would be what you go. So I'm going to go G.Marketeer. Now you could user must change password at next logon, which would probably be the most sensible option, but would obviously create rules and whatever else based around that as well. So I'll go for that. Now for this one though, I'm just going to create a password just to make life easy. I'm just going to say user cannot untick that one, and user cannot change password, so we'll just leave it at that. You can also have account as disabled. Now if you think about why would you have an account disabled, it could be that you've got temporary contracts that are about to start, so you would disable the contract in the meantime, and then what you can do is you can enable it on the day they start. So next and finish, and there we go, we have a user. Now I'm going to create another one. So new user again. Let's create Mary and Mary Smith. Really. So Mary Smith, and we'll just call her M.Smith. Okay, and that'll be at test.local. Next, and again, let's give her a password. Now, whatever passwords you use here, make sure you remember them. Okay, so you do create passwords for your users, then make sure you've written them down. Usually for things like this, for practice, I would just stick with the same password all the time. In real life, you'd obviously think about complex passwords and whatever else. Okay, so got two users. Now, another thing I can do in here is the use of Active Directory would be for groups. So this is another common one. So let's create a new group. So for the group, maybe I want to say that I want to create groups for special purposes. So printer access. Yeah, so I'll just say printer access group. So for printer access, and you get group scopes here now: domain, local, global, universal. Global is the default, which will take you across anything that's in your domain and any other domains that are joined onto it as well. Now it is a security group, which is there, as opposed to a distribution group, which is used for email only. So let's go for printer access. Now I've got two users there already, so we can go to properties, members, and add. So you want to add a member, right? So I would choose my new user, so search for myself, G.Marketeer, add me, then add Mary, so M.Smith, do a check names, and there's Mary added as well. So that's a quick overview of how you would get users onto Active Directory. Now I can go log out of this machine and log in as George Marketeer or Mary Smith now, because I've set them up. And the printer access thing, we'll come to that later on when I start demonstrating on how to use other things like group policy and whatever else you see, the use of these. Okay, so that's that.